And in the news in Vancouver, we have a story in the Georgia Strait about a plaque on Hamilton Street in downtown Vancouver, and it was put there by the city, a heritage plaque by the city of Vancouver, to kind of commemorate the CPR and the arrival of settlers in Vancouver. And the person who was celebrated at this moment was a man named Hamilton, and that was what Hamilton Street is named after. But the plaque made a mention that these lands were empty until the railway arrived and the settlers came. This has angered local First Nations people, the Aboriginal people, because they were living here for thousands of years before the settlers arrived in Vancouver to create the city that we live in today. So they were speaking to one of our reporters, Carlito Pablo, who about their concerns, and they think that this is not proper, that we need more recognition that the First Nations people were living in this area before the settlers from Europe arrived. And this is an issue that's popping up on a regular basis now in British Columbia and across Canada, and it was reflected in the Idle No More movement, where you had First Nations protesters saying, we're not going to be idle in the face of what's happening to us with the government. And one of their big issues is a pipeline that will ship oil to Kitimat that then would be transported to Asia because it will go across Aboriginal traditional territories. The issue, the disputes and the concerns of Aboriginal people have been with us in British Columbia ever since 1871, and before that even, but when British Columbia joined Confederation. And at that time, the First Nations people felt that they were cheated out of their land because the federal government gave the land, control over land and resources to the provinces, to the province of British Columbia. And they felt that a previous agreement they'd made with King George in 1763 said that this land could not be given away without a fair and open negotiation, and that didn't happen in 1871. So this story recently about the plaques declaring that this was an empty land before the settlers, the white settlers and Chinese settlers too, arrived, has been challenged by the First Nations, and we'll see what the city does. I have a feeling the city may get around to putting up a second plaque beside the first plaque, just as an acknowledgement to what the true history of British Columbia is. So for WOW TV, I'm Charlie Smith, editor of the Georgia Strait, and I've really enjoyed this summer rounding up the news for you on this morning.
感谢收看今天的大温故事，我们下期再见。